The scent of fresh paint still hung in the air, a sweet, hopeful smell. I wandered through the empty rooms of my new house, the click of my heels echoing on the polished hardwood floors. "It's perfect," I whispered, running a hand along the cool granite countertop in the kitchen. "Absolutely perfect." Lara and Julian strolled in, smiles plastered on their faces. "Mom, you weren't kidding," Lara gushed, her eyes wide. "This place is amazing. So much space." Julian nodded, his gaze sweeping over the high ceilings and large windows. "Definitely an upgrade," he agreed. A warmth spread through me, a sense of pride and accomplishment. Years of scrimping and saving, of late nights and missed holidays, had led to this, my own sanctuary. "I'm so glad you like it," I said, beaming. "We were thinking," Lara began, her voice taking on a slightly hesitant tone. That's when the first flicker of unease sparked within me. "Thinking what, dear?" I asked, my smile faltering slightly. Julian cleared his throat. "Well, with all this extra room," he trailed off, gesturing vaguely around the open-plan living area. Lara picked up the thread, her voice now rushed. "Wouldn't it be wonderful if your parents and your sister could finally move in with you? They've been struggling for so long, and this place is more than big enough. Imagine all of us together, one big happy family." My breath caught in my throat. The image of my parents and sister crammed into the spare bedrooms, their belongings overflowing into the shared living spaces, flashed before my eyes. I hadn't really considered that," I stammered, my mind racing. Lara rushed on, oblivious to the growing coldness in my gut. "We already talked to them, and they're thrilled. We even called the movers. They can be here next week." Julian chimed in. "It'll be great, Mom. Think of all the family dinners we can have." He clapped me on the shoulder, the gesture feeling oddly heavy, almost suffocating. The joy I had felt just moments before evaporated, replaced by a rising tide of resentment. This was my house, my haven, bought with my own hard work. It wasn't meant to become a free-for-all family hostel. I forced a smile, my voice strained. "That's a lot to take in. Let's talk about it later, shall we? I'm a bit overwhelmed right now." Lara and Julian exchanged a look, a mixture of confusion and slight annoyance flickering in their eyes. "Sure, Mom," Lara said, her voice now tinged with a hint of impatience. "But don't think about it too long. The movers are booked, and everyone's so excited." They wandered off, leaving me standing alone in the silence of my suddenly not-so-perfect house. The sweet smell of fresh paint now felt cloying, almost suffocating. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms. They had made plans, grand plans, for my house, without even consulting me. The audacity! I walked over to the large window overlooking the quiet street, the evening sun casting long shadows across the freshly mown lawn. This was supposed to be my fresh start, my escape from years of putting everyone else's needs before my own. I had envisioned quiet evenings with a book by the fireplace, lazy Sunday mornings with coffee on the patio, a space that was truly mine. Now, that vision was clouded by the looming presence of my extended family, their needs and demands threatening to engulf my hard-earned peace. A quiet resolve began to harden within me. I wouldn't let them steal this from me. This house was mine, and I would defend it. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. There were a few calls I needed to make. A storage unit, a utility company, a moving company. I had a plan forming, a slow, quiet plan that would ensure my sanctuary remained just that mine. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on my lips. They wanted a family gathering. They would get one, just not the one they were expecting. The air in the house felt different now, charged with a new kind of energy. The sweet smell of fresh paint was fading, replaced by the steel scent of resolve. I looked out at the darkening sky, a sense of anticipation building within me. The game had begun. Rain lashed against the windows of my new home, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. "Mom, we're so happy for you," Lara said, her smile strained. Julian nodded, his eyes darting around the living room. "This place is something else." Darren, my own son, just squeezed my hand. "We brought champagne," he offered, holding up the bottle. They'd come for a celebratory dinner, supposedly, but the tension in the air was thicker than the celebratory frosting on the cake Lara had brought. After a stilted meal, during which they praised the house's generous space a few too many times, Darren finally broached the subject. "Mom," he began hesitantly, "we've been talking about how much room you have here." My stomach clenched. I knew where this was going. Lara chimed in. "It's just, with the baby on the way and my parents needing a place," she trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. I kept my gaze fixed on the flickering candle, the flame a small, defiant spark against the encroaching darkness. "And my sister, you know she's between jobs," Lara added, as if piling on more hardship would somehow make their request more palatable. So Darren continued, clearing his throat. "We were wondering about the spare bedroom." He looked at me, a pleading expression on his face. My heart sank. This house, my haven, the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice, was being treated like a communal dormitory. I managed a weak smile. "The spare bedroom," I repeated, buying myself a moment to compose myself. The rain outside intensified, mirroring the turmoil in my chest. "Yes," Lara jumped in, her tone a bit too bright. "It's perfect, really. Plenty of space for everyone. And we could all be together, like a real family," she beamed, oblivious to the icy grip tightening around my heart. Julian nodded enthusiastically. "Think of the holidays," he added. "All of us right here." He gestured around the room, as if he already owned the place. My vision blurred slightly, and I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "It's a lovely thought," I said quietly, my voice trembling slightly. I stood up, gathering the empty plates, but I need some time to think about it. I carried the dishes to the kitchen, the clatter providing a welcome distraction from the suffocating conversation. The rain continued to batter the windows, the sound a relentless reminder of the storm raging both outside and within me. Darren followed me into the kitchen. "Mom," he said softly, "Lara's family really needs this." I turned to face him, my heart aching. "Darren," I replied, "this is my home. I worked my entire life for this." I looked out at the rain-soaked garden, the dream I had so carefully cultivated now threatened by a creeping shadow. He reached out and touched my arm. "I know, Mom, but we're family. We're supposed to help each other." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken expectations. I turned away, unable to meet his gaze. "I need some air," I murmured, escaping to the back patio. The cold rain stung my face, a welcome shock to my numb senses. Standing there, the wind whipping around me, I felt a flicker of resolve ignite within me. This was my house, my sanctuary, and I wouldn't let anyone, not even my own family, take it away from me. I closed my eyes, letting the rain wash over me, a silent promise forming in my mind. I would not surrender. I would find a way. The storm outside was fierce, but the one gathering inside me was just beginning. I returned inside, my face wet, my resolve hardened. The charade of celebration had dissipated, leaving a thick residue of resentment. Lara and Julian were packing up their things, their faces etched with an unsettling mixture of expectation and entitlement. Doran lingered, his eyes searching mine. "So, Mom?" he asked tentatively. I met his gaze, a new steeliness in my own. "I'll let you know," I said quietly, a subtle shift in my tone. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was a promise of something more, something they wouldn't expect. They left soon after, the silence in their wake heavy with anticipation. I watched their car disappear into the rainy night, a strange calmness settling over me. The storm outside had subsided, but the one within me was just gaining momentum. I had a plan forming, a plan to reclaim my space, my peace, my future, and it involved much more than just a spare bedroom. The rain had stopped, and a sliver of moon peeked through the clouds. It was time to start building. The silence in my new house was deafening. It echoed the emptiness I felt inside. "I can't believe they thought they could just take over," I muttered to myself, pacing the length of the gleaming hardwood floor I'd picked out myself. The floors I'd envisioned my grandchildren playing on someday, not Lara's parents and her sister. Earlier that day, Lara had blithely announced that the movers were scheduled for tomorrow, that her family would be arriving next week. "Mom, it'll be great," she chirped. "Think of all the help you'll have with the garden." Help! I'd spent months meticulously planning that garden, envisioning quiet mornings spent tending to the roses and herbs. Their arrival wasn't help. It was an invasion. I sank onto the plush sofa, the one I'd splurged on, the one meant for quiet evenings with a good book, not crowded family gatherings. The pale sunlight filtering through the windows painted stripes across the empty room, highlighting the dust motes dancing in the air. Dust motes of my dreams, I thought bitterly, swirling around me like a shroud. I ran my hand over the smooth, cool surface of the coffee table. This house, this space, it was supposed to be my sanctuary. After years of scrimping and saving, after a lifetime of putting others' needs before my own, I finally had something that was just mine. "It's not fair," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made, the long hours I'd worked, the dreams I'd deferred, all so I could finally have a place to call my own. And now Lara and Julian expected me to just hand it over. They didn't even ask, I murmured, the realization hitting me afresh with a wave of nausea. They'd simply informed me as if my opinion, my feelings, didn't matter, as if this wasn't my house, my life. I walked over to the large window overlooking the backyard. The setting sun cast long shadows across the freshly mown lawn. I'd imagine myself sipping iced tea on the patio, watching the birds flitting among the branches of the old oak tree. Now I pictured Lara's family sprawled across the long furniture, their laughter echoing through the open windows, their belongings cluttering my carefully curated space. "This is my home," I said aloud, the words firm and resolute. A small flicker of defiance ignited within me, a spark of resistance against the overwhelming sense of helplessness. I wasn't going to let them take this from me. Not now, not ever. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts, pausing at the number for the moving company. "Hello," I said, my voice steady and calm. "I'm calling to cancel the move scheduled for tomorrow." I listened patiently as the representative on the other end fumbled through their schedule, finally confirming the cancellation. "Thank you," I replied, a small, tight smile playing on my lips. One small step, one small victory. I then called the furniture store where I'd ordered a new bedroom set for the guest room, the one Lara's sister was supposed to occupy. "I need to change the delivery address," I explained, providing the details for a storage unit I'd rented earlier that day. "And please hold off on assembling the furniture until further notice." The representative assured me the changes would be made. I hung up the phone, a sense of purpose settling over me. This was my house, and I would decide who lived in it. And how I walked into the kitchen, the modern stainless steel appliances gleaming under the recessed lighting. I opened the refrigerator, its emptiness a stark reminder of the life I was meant to build here, the meals I was meant to cook, the memories I was meant to create. "Not if they have anything to do with it," I muttered, a grim determination hardening my resolve. I pulled out a notepad and pen and began to write. A list of names, numbers, dates. A plan was forming, a strategy for reclaiming my space, my life. I would not be bullied. I would not be silenced. I would not be erased. I would fight for what was mine, and they would learn that there are some lines you simply do not cross. I continued writing, the scratching of the pen against the paper a small, steady rhythm in the otherwise silent house. I listed the utility companies, the cable provider, the internet service. I made a note to call them in the morning, to put everything on hold, to create a little inconvenience. "They think they can just waltz in and take over," I whispered, a cold fire burning in my eyes. "They have another thing coming." The house was quiet again, but this time, the silence wasn't deafening. It was filled with the quiet hum of anticipation, the promise of a reckoning to come. I looked around at the empty rooms, the bare walls, the pristine floors. This house was mine, and I would protect it, no matter the cost. I folded the list carefully and tucked it into my pocket. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. Night pressed against the windows of my new home, a home I had poured my life into, a home that was supposed to be my sanctuary. Instead, it felt like a cage. "You should be grateful we even considered you," Lara had sneered, her voice dripping with a condescending sweetness that cut deeper than any shout. "It's just a spare room. After all, just a spare room. My spare room. In my house. The house I bought with my own two hands. After years of scrimping and saving, of working double shifts and skipping vacations. Years of putting everyone else's needs before my own, only to be told I should be grateful for the scraps they deigned to throw my way. I looked around the empty living room, the bare walls echoing the hollowness in my chest. The boxes lay stacked, unpacked, filled with the remnants of a life I thought I was finally building for myself. Now, they felt like monuments to my naivete. I remembered the excitement I'd felt just weeks ago, signing the papers, the weight of the keys in my hand. "This is it, Mom," Darren had said, beaming. "You've earned this." His words rang in my ears now, laced with a bitter irony. Had I earned this? Earned the right to be treated like a live-in housekeeper, a convenient afterthought in my own life? "It's a big house, Lorene," Julian had chimed in, his eyes already calculating the square footage, mentally dividing it amongst his family. Plenty of room for everyone. Everyone except me. It seemed my space, my haven, was already being carved up, portioned out without my consent, without even a thought to my feelings. We figured it would be nice for everyone to be together, Lara had added, her smile tight and brittle. Nice for everyone except me. I wandered into the kitchen, the sleek stainless steel appliances gleaming under the dim light. I'd envisioned myself here, sipping coffee in the morning sun, cooking family dinners my family, not theirs. Now, I could almost see them crowding around my table, their voices filling the space, their needs consuming my time and energy. "Mom can handle it," Darren had said dismissively when I'd hesitantly voiced my concerns. "She's always been so helpful." Helpful. That's what I was. A helpful pair of hands, a convenient resource to be tapped dry. I opened a cabinet, running my fingers along the smooth wood. I'd chosen these myself, carefully selecting each detail, pouring my hopes and dreams into every corner of this house. Now, those dreams felt tainted, stained with the bitter residue of their presumption. I sank onto a stool at the breakfast bar, the cold granite a stark reminder of my isolation. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the new house settling. I closed my eyes, trying to conjure the image of the life I'd envisioned, the peace and solitude I'd craved for so long. But all I could see were their faces, their expectant smiles, their casual disregard for my feelings. "It's only temporary," Darren had assured me, "but temporary can stretch into an eternity when you're slowly suffocating under the weight of other people's expectations." A flicker of anger, hot and sharp, pierced through the numbness. No, I wouldn't let them do this to me. This was my house, my sanctuary, and I wouldn't be pushed aside, relegated to the sidelines of my own life. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much. I deserved more than this. A sense of resolve, cold and hard, began to solidify within me. I opened my eyes, the emptiness replaced by a steely determination. I would not be a victim. I would not be silenced. I would take back what was rightfully mine. A slow smile spread across my face, a smile that held no warmth, only the icy promise of what was to come. They thought they knew me. They thought they could walk all over me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I picked up my phone, the screen illuminating my face in the darkness. It was time to make a few calls. The movers, the utility companies, the storage facility, everything was about to change. They wanted a house full of family. They were about to get one, but not the one they expected. The morning sun, filtering through the still bare windows of my new house, felt less like a welcome and more like an interrogation. I'd spent years visualizing this moment, sunlight warming the polished floors of my own home, but Lara's casual announcement that her parents and sister would be moving in had chilled me to the bone. "It's just temporary, Mom," she'd said, as though storing someone's entire life in my spare bedroom was a minor inconvenience. "Think of it as helping family. Helping family. This house, this dream, was the culmination of my own hard work, not a communal shelter." I sipped my lukewarm tea, the silence of the empty house amplifying the turmoil inside me. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. My phone buzzed, a reminder for the mover's arrival. A flicker of resolve sparked within me. Time to take control. I murmured to the empty room, a new kind of warmth spreading through me. I dialed the moving company. "Hello. Yes, this is Lorraine, confirming my delivery for today. There's been a slight change of plans." I gave them the address of a storage unit I'd rented the previous afternoon. "Everything goes there, please. I'll meet you at the unit." The operator confirmed the details, and a quiet satisfaction settled in. My furniture, my belongings, they wouldn't be hostages in this unfolding drama. Next, I called the utility companies. Gas, electricity, and water. I told the representative, my voice steady despite the frantic rhythm of my heart. "I need to temporarily suspend service at my new address." There were questions, of course, expected move-in dates, reasons for the delay, unforeseen circumstances. I explained vaguely, each word a small victory against the encroaching tide of Lara's presumption. "I'll call back to reschedule when I have a confirmed date." With each call, each redirected delivery, each paused service, I felt a sense of agency returning. I walked through the empty rooms, the echo of my footsteps a stark contrast to the imagined bustle of Lara's extended family. I pictured them arriving, luggage in hand, ready to settle into my space. The image fueled my resolve. This wasn't about being unkind. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. This house represented my independence, my future, a future I wouldn't let anyone, not even family, take from me. I spent the rest of the morning drafting a message to Lara and Darren. It needed to be clear, concise, and unwavering. No room for misinterpretation. No chance for them to plead or manipulate. "Lara, Darren," I typed, deleting and rewording each sentence until it reflected the steel I felt hardening within me. "I'm writing to inform you that your plan to move your family into my new home is not going to happen." I paused, considering the weight of those words. The finality. This house is mine. I worked hard for it, and I will not be sharing it in the way you've envisioned. I continued, outlining the steps I'd taken: the redirected furniture, the paused utilities. "I'm happy to discuss this further," I concluded, though a part of me knew there was nothing left to discuss. "But my decision is final." I hesitated before hitting send. A momentary wave of doubt washing over me. Was I being too harsh, too drastic? Then I remembered Lara's dismissive tone, the casual way she'd assumed my compliance. My finger pressed the send button. The message was out there, irrevocable. The silence that followed felt heavy, pregnant with anticipation. I knew this would cause a storm, a whirlwind of accusations and recriminations. But for the first time in days, I felt a sense of calm amidst the brewing chaos. I had drawn my line in the sand. The house was mine, and I was ready to defend it. The sunlight, now streaming directly into the living room, felt like a benediction, a silent affirmation of my resolve. Something told me this was just the beginning. The crisp afternoon air bit at my cheeks as I walked into Maya's office. "Lorraine, so good to see you," she greeted, her smile warm and reassuring. "Have a seat." I settled into the plush leather chair, the weight of the past few days pressing down on me. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice," I said, my voice a little shaky. "Of course," Maya replied, pulling a folder from her desk. "Now you said something about a declaration." "Yes," I confirmed, taking a deep breath. "A formal, legal declaration stating that I will not be accommodating Lara's family in my home." Maya raised an eyebrow, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher in her eyes. "Bold move, Lorraine. Necessary," I corrected softly, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. "They assumed they could just move in. My parents, my sister, all of them, into my house. Without even asking." "I understand," Maya said, her voice calm and professional. "And you want to make sure there's no room for misinterpretation." "Exactly," I affirmed. "I worked hard for this house. Years of scrimping and saving, long hours, missed holidays. This was my dream. And they just assumed." I trailed off, the frustration bubbling up again. "They acted like I owed them something." "Well, you don't," Maya stated firmly. "This is your property, your space. You have every right to decide who lives there." She opened the folder and began shuffling through the documents inside. "I've drafted a declaration based on our previous conversation. It clearly states that you are the sole owner and occupant of the property, and that you are refusing consent for any other individuals to reside there permanently or temporarily." I listened intently as she explained the legalities, the implications, the potential repercussions. Lara and Julian might be angry. They might try to argue, to guilt-trip me. But with this declaration, I would have a solid legal footing. This was my house, my sanctuary, and I would protect it. It also addresses the issue of the furniture deliveries, Maya continued, tapping a page with her pen. "We've included a clause specifying that any items delivered to your address without your express prior authorization will be considered abandoned property and disposed of accordingly." A small, almost involuntary smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Lara had been so confident, so sure of herself, ordering new furniture for a space she hadn't even been offered. "Excellent," I said, the word feeling stronger, more resolute than I'd expected. "That covers everything." Maya nodded. "Just one more thing," she said, reaching for another document. "This is a cease and desist letter. It's addressed to Lara and Julian, formally requesting that they cease all communication regarding their proposed living arrangements. Any further attempts to pressure or coerce you will be considered harassment." This was more than I had hoped for, a shield, a barrier against their relentless pressure. "Thank you, Maya," I said, my voice filled with genuine gratitude. "You have no idea how much this means to me." She smiled. "It's my job to protect my clients' interests, Lorraine, and you deserve to feel safe and secure in your own home." I signed the documents, the weight on my chest lifting with each stroke of the pen. This was it, the line in the sand. I was taking back control. As I left Maya's office, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. The future was uncertain, yes, but for the first time since this whole ordeal began, I felt a sense of quiet strength, a deep-seated confidence that I would weather this storm, and not only weather it, but emerge stronger on the other side. I had a few more calls to make, a few more arrangements to put in place. The game, it seemed, was far from over. The afternoon sun slanted through the living room windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I stood at the kitchen counter, pen in hand, a blank sheet of paper in front of me. My hand trembled slightly. "This is it," I murmured to myself, "the moment I take back control." Writing this note felt more momentous than signing the closing papers on this house. It was a declaration of independence, a reclaiming of my life after Lara and Darren's audacious attempt to commandeer my home. I took a deep breath and began to write. "Lara, Darren," the words flowed onto the paper. "I understand you believed you could simply move your family into my home without my consent." I paused, the memory of Lara's breezy assumption. "Oh, it'll be just like having one big happy family," stinging afresh. I continued writing. "While I love my family, this house is my sanctuary, the culmination of years of hard work. It is not a communal living space." I detailed my decision, explaining that I had canceled the movers and redirected their belongings to a storage unit. The information felt weighty, final. "The keys you have will no longer work," I wrote, adding the address of the storage facility. "I will be in touch when I am ready to discuss this further." Folding the paper carefully, I placed it on the kitchen counter, weighing it down with a small ceramic bowl I'd recently purchased. A symbol of the life I intended to build here, on my own terms. With the note in place, I picked up my phone and called a local locksmith. "I need my locks changed," I stated plainly. "Can you come this afternoon?" The locksmith assured me he could be there within the hour. I spent the waiting time walking through the empty rooms, touching the walls, running my hand along the smooth granite countertops. This was my space, my haven. I had poured my heart and soul into making this house a home, and I wasn't about to let anyone, not even my own children, take that away from me. The chime of the doorbell announced the locksmith's arrival. He was a young man, efficient and polite. "Just let me know when you're ready," he said, setting down his toolbox. I watched as he worked, the metallic clicks and whirs of his tools a strangely comforting sound. Each turn of the screw, each replaced tumbler, felt like another brick in the wall I was building around my piece. When he finished, he presented me with a new set of keys, gleaming silver in the afternoon light. "All done," he said. "These are the only keys that will work now." I took them, the cool metal a reassuring weight in my palm. "Thank you," I said, a quiet strength entering my voice. After the locksmith left, I walked through the house again, this time locking and unlocking each door, testing the new keys, solidifying the reality of my reclaimed space. The silence of the house was no longer unsettling. It was peaceful, a promise of tranquility. I looked round at the bare walls, the empty rooms. They were a blank canvas, waiting for me to fill them with my life, my dreams, my future, a future I would now shape entirely on my own terms. This wasn't how I envisioned things, Certainly not with my own children. A pang of sadness pierced through my resolve, a momentary flicker of doubt. Was I being too harsh, too unforgiving? But the image of Lara casually dismissing my feelings, the memory of their presumption, quickly hardened my resolve. This wasn't about being harsh. It was about setting boundaries, about protecting myself and the life I had worked so hard to create. I had spent years sacrificing, saving, planning for this house, for this moment of independence. I wasn't going to let it be stolen from me. I picked up my purse and keys. It's time for a new chapter, I whispered to the empty rooms, a small smile playing on my lips. There were things I needed to do, arrangements to make. The storage unit was just the beginning. I needed to secure my finances, explore some investment opportunities I had been putting off. I had a feeling this was just the first step in a much larger plan, a plan to not only reclaim my space, but also to build a future beyond anything I had ever imagined. The details were still hazy, but one thing was clear. I was in control now, and I wouldn't let anyone take that away from me again. I stepped out of the house, locking the door firmly behind me, the click echoing in the quiet afternoon air. The crisp morning air nipped at my skin as I sipped my coffee from across the street, parked inconspicuously behind a leafy oak. My phone bootsed a text from the storage unit confirming the last of the furniture had arrived. Good. Everything was in place. I watched as Lara's car pulled up to the curb outside my new house, followed by a packed minivan. This is it, I murmured to myself, a small smile playing on my lips. They looked so confident, so sure of their victory. It was almost endearing. Almost. Lara hopped out, her phone glued to her ear, likely chattering away to Julian. She gestured impatiently to Darren, who was wrestling with the minivan's sliding door. Out tumbled her parents, looking bewildered by the unfamiliar surroundings, followed by her sister, clutching a fussy toddler. The whole chaotic scene unfolded before me like a poorly rehearsed play. Darren, hurry up with the keys. Lara snapped, finally ending her call. Mom said she left them under the mat. Darren fumbled under the welcome mat, but his expression quickly shifted from annoyance to confusion. They're not here, he muttered, patting his pockets. Lara rolled her eyes. Check again. Maybe they're stuck. He checked again, this time with more urgency, lifting the mat completely. Nothing. Well, where are they? Lara's voice rose an octave. Her parents exchanged worried glances. I don't know, Darren exclaimed, running a hand through his hair. Mom always leaves them there. Maybe she forgot. He started pacing, pulling out his own phone to call me. I watched it ring, the familiar tune echoing faintly across the street. I let it go to voicemail. Lara started peppering him with questions, her voice tight with frustration. Where is she? Why isn't she answering? Did she say anything about not leaving the keys? Darren could only shake his head, looking increasingly flustered. The scene was starting to attract attention from neighbors walking their dogs. A few curious glances were cast in my direction, but I remained hidden behind the tree, a silent observer of the unfolding drama. After several more frantic calls, Lara marched up to the front door and rattled the handle, locked. She jiggled it harder, then banged on the door, her frustration boiling over. Mom, open the door. It's us. Silence. The toddler, sensing his mother's distress, began to wail. Lara's parents stood awkwardly by, looking lost and uncomfortable. Darren tried the windows, peering inside, but the blinds were drawn. "Maybe she's in the back," he suggested weakly. Lara shot him a withering look. "Where else would she be, Darren? This is her house. She knows we're coming." She kicked the bottom of the door in frustration. I winced, not for the door, but for the inevitable realization that was about to dawn on her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Darren turned to his wife, defeat etched on his face. "I think she's done this on purpose." Lara's face went pale. What? What do you mean?" Darren explained about the cancelled movers, the redirected mail, the unanswered calls. He even mentioned the utilities, which, conveniently, had been temporarily suspended due to clerical error. I had ensured that error. As the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place for Lara, her anger melted into something else, a cold, dawning fear. "She wouldn't," she whispered, shaking her head. She couldn't. But the evidence was mounting against her, staring her in the face in the form of a locked door, a silent house, and a growing crowd of curious onlookers. I watched as the realization sunk in, the understanding that her carefully crafted plan had backfired spectacularly. The look on her face was priceless, a mixture of shock, disbelief, and a creeping sense of dread. She turned to Darren, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where are we going to stay?" He shrugged helplessly, avoiding her gaze. He had no answer, and neither did I, not for them, anyway. I finished my coffee, the warm liquid a comforting contrast to the chilling scene unfolding before me. I started the car, the engine humming to life, a soundtrack to their growing despair. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. They were huddled together on the porch, looking small and vulnerable, their belongings scattered round them like the remnants of a shattered dream. I had given them a taste of what it felt like to be powerless, to have your plans thwarted, your future uncertain, and it was, in its own twisted way, a beautiful thing to behold. My phone buzzed again. It was the real estate agent. The offer on the beachfront condo was accepted. The text read. I smiled. "Christmas in the Caribbean. Just me." The engine hummed beneath me, a low, comforting purr as I pulled away from the curb. I glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. There it stood, my house, bathed in the early morning sunlight. A beautiful, silent testament to years of hard work and careful saving. "It's finally mine," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. Just yesterday, it felt like it was slipping through my fingers like sand. Lara and Darren, bless their hearts, had seemed so sure of themselves, so entitled. "Mom, it's just a little extra space," Darren had said, his voice pleading. "Lara's parents and her sister really need a place to stay, and you have so much room. It's only for a few months." Lara chimed in, her hand resting on my arm. "We wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. But it wasn't just a little extra space. It was my sanctuary, my haven, the culmination of a lifetime of dreaming. And asking me after the movers were already booked, that wasn't asking. It was informing. The memory of their shocked faces as they arrived with the moving truck yesterday still brought a small, involuntary smile to my lips. The truck driver, a burly man with a kind face, had scratched his head, looking confused. "Mum, The delivery address is different from the contact information, and the utilities are disconnected. I simply smiled and explained there must be a mistake. The movers, after several frustrated phone calls to Lara, finally drove away, leaving them stranded on the sidewalk with their belongings. I hadn't spoken to them since, not after I'd seen the flash of anger in Lara's eyes, the bewildered hurt on Darren's face. I knew they'd be calling, texting, demanding explanations. But for now, the silence was a bomb. I drove aimlessly, letting the familiar streets of my town wash over me. I passed the little bakery where I'd always stopped for a morning coffee on my way to work, the park where I used to take my children when they were small. Each landmark felt imbued with a new significance, a fresh layer of meaning now that I was finally free to enjoy them, free from the weight of expectation and obligation. I pulled into the parking lot of a small diner, a place I'd never been before. I ordered a cup of coffee and a plate of pancakes, savoring the simple pleasure of a quiet breakfast, just me and my thoughts. As I sipped my coffee, I thought about the storage unit I'd rented, filled with new furniture and appliances, all carefully chosen to create the perfect home. I'd even splurged on a luxurious soaking tub, something I'd always wanted. The thought of finally unpacking those boxes, of arranging everything just so, filled me with a sense of anticipation. I imagined the look on Lara's face when she finally realized the extent of my plan. The realization that I hadn't just refused her request, I'd actively orchestrated their predicament. I'd canceled the movers, yes, but I'd also quietly redirected all their furniture deliveries to the storage unit. I'd paused the utility services, knowing they wouldn't be able to turn them back on without proof of residency. I'd even gone so far as to change the locks. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about reclaiming my space, my autonomy, my future. It was about finally putting myself first. For years, I'd poured all my energy into taking care of others, into making sure everyone else was comfortable and happy. I'd put my own dreams on hold, sacrifice my own desires for the sake of my family. And somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself. But not anymore. Finishing my coffee, I felt a surge of energy, a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just a house. It was a symbol of my independence, a testament to my resilience. It was a fresh start, a blank canvas on which I could finally paint the life I'd always wanted. I paid for my breakfast, leaving a generous tip for the waitress. As I walked back to my car, I noticed a travel agency across the street. A poster in the window caught my eye, a picture of a pristine beach with crystal clear water, palm trees swaying gently in the breeze. A sudden impulse, a spark of adventure, ignited within me. Maybe, I murmured to myself, a smile playing on my lips. It's time for a little vacation. The thought of escaping to a tropical paradise, of leaving all the drama and stress behind, felt intoxicating. And with the house secure, with my future finally in my own hands, I knew I could do anything at all.